Alright, so we're holding chapter Kuf Yutet 119, for those who want to follow in Tehilim Psalms. This is the longest chapter in Tehilim. It contains 176 verses. So it will take us several weeks to complete. It's divided by the Aleph bit. If you noticed, from Aleph till Tav, you have 8 Pesukim, 8 verses for each letter of the Aleph bit. 8 for Aleph, 8 for Bet, 8 for Gimel. Very interesting composition, this chapter. The focus is on the Torah, direction in life, what should be emphasized, how we should not be distracted. It contains much detail. Even though we're used to hearing David HaMelech speak about different aspects of life, here you have somewhat of a synopsis of what is really important. After all, we have our families, we have our jobs, we have our needs that we need to take care of. And here David HaMelech stresses the importance of observing the mitzvot, the learning of the Torah, reviewing it, not to forget it. A lot of valuable information in order to strengthen and encourage those who feel either threatened by all kinds of elements that want to take away their peace of mind and focus, or other kinds of issues that they may have in life which interferes with their real desire of wanting to do the right thing, of wanting to serve Hashem properly. People sometimes really have the intent of doing the right thing. They would love to observe the mitzvot, but there's all kinds of things that interfere and try to rob them of their time. Life is short, which he will point out. And what is there to do? How do we contend with all those challenges that we face? Every one of us faces all kinds of challenges. It could be a challenge from his own personality, things that we need to contend with, weaknesses in the character, or from the outside. So this chapter is very encouraging. It reminds us of what is really important in life, so that if we say this on a regular basis, we will not forget. That is why Tehilim, aside from it being very powerful, if one understands what he's saying, it could help him. It could help remind him, look, David HaMelech, he was a king. This is what he faced, this is what he had to deal with, and this is his advice to us. The special remedy, or the special power of this chapter is with all kinds of illnesses that one may have. And I say all kinds because depending on which part you read, it pertains to another part of the body. That one may have all kinds of weaknesses that he needs help with. So praying to Hashem, of course, is important, and hopefully there won't be any illness that he will have to be preoccupied with. But if there is, you should not forget that Tehilim is definitely a recourse. Besides the doctors, we have to go to doctors to deal with certain issues, but sometimes the doctors can't help, sometimes they misdiagnose. And Tehilim is always good. So we're going to begin, today we're going to do Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. So you will notice that there's 8 verses per letter. What is the significance of the number 8? So the commentaries explain that 8 represents Brit Milah, the circumcision. It also represents other things, and there are other explanations. But the reason why Brit Milah is something that stands out over here, the number 8, is because that is one way that a Jew completes himself. Abraham is told, Talech lefanai v'yeh tamim, be complete before me. He's instructed by God that he will be completed through the circumcision. The circumcision being a constant reminder of his bond with the Almighty. It's a constant reminder because it's on his flesh. It's a seal, it's a chotam. And therefore, the tmimut, the completeness that he's going to mention in the first verse, is somewhat related to the tmimut, to the completeness of the Brit Milah. Aside from that, the rabbis tell us that David HaMelech was very, very excited about this mitzvah. The mitzvah of Brit Milah reminded him. It doesn't remind everyone, people forget about it, but it reminded him of his connection with God, and he was always excited about it. So he composed this chapter that each letter has 8 pesukim, with the emphasis being on the entire Aleph bit, of course, which is the Torah that was given with all the Chaf Bet, all the 22 letters of the Aleph Bet. So there's an emphasis on the importance of learning Torah here. So he begins by reminding us that really people who are temimei darech, those who are sincere, complete, have integrity. I guess each one of those pretty much describes what temimei darech is. Their way of life is predictable. They pretty much are steadfast in their way and complete in their emunah, in their faith, in wanting to do always the right thing. And what do they do to prove that? Ha'olchim betorat Hashem, who walk in with the Torah of Hashem. So they are fortunate. It's fortunate are such people. And if you want to have an idea of why they're fortunate, it's all over Tehilim. And it's in Mishlei as well, in Proverbs, of the great advantage of those who lead their life according to the Torah, and those who lose out a lot because of the many mistakes they make by not following the advice of the Torah. So he begins by telling us that these individuals who are temimim, who are sincere, who are complete, are fortunate. So the simple understanding of temimut here is the emunah, the faith. How do we see one's faith being tamim? One way is that he's not echad balev, echad bapeh. That he's not one way in the way he speaks and the one way in the way he feels inside, in his heart. A lot of people say things to impress people, but inside, deep down, they don't really believe it. They're not serious, or they're fakers. That's called echad balev, echad bapeh. One way in their heart, one way in the way they speak. Tamim, shalem, complete, means it's the same. You know, he's not two-faced. Doru, Dora, right? He's not two-faced. He's for real. So that's tamimut. That comes from being complete. So that is seen in one's emunah. Is his emunah for real? Or is it just once in a while? Or is it fake and not so real? The reason why he begins this chapter with this particular verse of Tmimut, because if you recall, in the last chapter we talked about the gate of the tzaddikim, the gate of Hashem, the gates of tzedek, that David HaMelech wishes to enter in the afterlife, and in this world as well. Special gates that are reserved for the righteous. So here he's somewhat insinuating, as a continuation, this is the way to do it. Is to be tamim, to be shalem in your faith, to be complete. This is how one is able to merit, after his departure from this world, to go to those special gates. Another way of seeing tmimut, completeness, is in one's observance of the mitzvot. There are those that may be okay about doing the positive mitzvot, the commandments, but they have a hard time with the negative, with the lo ta'aseh. Don't do this, don't do that. Some of them present difficulties for people. Tmimut, when we talk about completeness, is that you can't pick and choose what you want. Complete mitzvot aseh and not aseh, the positive and the negative commandments. So that is another form of tmimut that he's pointing to. Another tmimut, you could say, which we mentioned earlier, is leshem shamayim, doing something for the sake of heaven, not for your own gain, for your own self-interest. You need to be complete in your faith with God. One way of interpreting that completeness is doing it lelo shum pniya acheret, without any other motives other than the service of God. I'm doing it because He instructed me, which also means I'm not doing it because I feel like it, because I believe in it myself, it makes sense to me, it's logical. No, I'm doing it for Him. So that's tamim in the area of emunah, in the area of faith. Next verse, verse Bet 2. Ashrei notzrei edotav b'chol lev yidreshuhu. Fortunate are those who keep His edotav, the testimonies, who seek Him with all their heart. Here, we're talking about observance of the mitzvot b'chol lev, with all their heart, meaning with kavanah. There are people who will observe the mitzvah, the commandment, but perhaps they don't do it with kavanah, with intent, with all their heart. So the emphasis here is in some ways a continuation of the concept of completeness, complete with kavanah. Otherwise, it's lacking. It's like, imagine writing your wife a birthday card, but you don't mean what you say, and she can tell if you really meant those words or not. So you want to put kavanah, you want to put intent, and that's done with all one's heart. So he says, fortunate are those who have reached this level, because it's not something that people do naturally. It's something that people acquire. It's part of our free will. And that takes time and training and repetition. But more than that, it takes clarity of purpose. What is this for? What good do I have? Or will I derive from observing this mitzvot? So once one has clarity, of course, it will be easier for him that he will seek it. He will seek any opportunity to observe the mitzvot. The Midrash adds that if we Notzrei means if we watch over, if we keep the mitzvot, it will watch over us. So the Torah watched over the Jewish people whenever they observed the Torah mitzvot. So that's like a guarantee that if we watch over it, it will watch over us. Next verse, Gimel. Af lo pa'alu avla bidrachav halahu. Number 3, indeed, I guess we can translate it, they have not done iniquity, they walk in his ways. Well, I think that's pretty much self-explanatory, that some people are not careful enough with iniquity, with avla. They may do certain things that are very, very not right, even if it's not written in the Torah necessarily, but it's not acceptable, it's not in the spirit of the Torah. That's why maybe iniquity is a good translation of avla. Aflo pa'alu bidrachav halahu. Because there are certain things that are self-evident. You don't need for the Torah to specify this is right, this is wrong. Once we understand what the Torah is asking of us, then hopefully we will live our life in the spirit of the Torah by conducting ourselves in such a way that is not abusive of others. Even though when you're abusing, you're not necessarily doing something that constitutes a sin, but it's still an avla. It's still wrong. So if we're dealing with tmimut, completeness, it means that we're careful, in the way we behave with others, in the way we interact, that we don't do something which is inappropriate. There's an example that the rabbis actually give for this particular verse. The rabbis tell us in the Gemara, if someone had an opportunity to do something wrong, and he held himself back, he is rewarded for that. Because reward is not only for observing commandments, for doing the mitzvot. If one held himself back, he could have done something wrong, and he did not. He's also rewarded for that. Otherwise, how do we observe the lo tasid, the negative commandments? So, lo pa'alu avla is, let's see, you will be tested, and we're all tested. Not just Abraham Avinu. Everyone is tested. So if once held himself back, he could have done something wrong. He could have cheated. He could have lied, and he did not. That constitutes that he did not behave himself in an inappropriate way, lo pa'alu avla, for which he will be rewarded. Next one. אתה ציווית פיקודיך לשמור מאוד. Number 4. You have commanded your precepts to be observed diligently. So we know that we're commanded, but what does it mean, diligently? You will find throughout the Torah a great emphasis on being careful with not manipulating the written word, not to add a mitzvah, not to remove a mitzvah, not to make changes, to put up fences where fences may be necessary in a certain time in history, because there's a certain weakness in that generation. The Chachamim, the rabbis, the sages, it was within their jurisdiction to enact such laws that were not contrary to the Torah, of course, but bolstered or supported the Torah. We have a lot of halachot, Jewish law, that is rabbinic in its origin, but of course was necessary, so that we should not come to transgress a more serious sin in the Torah. So we're being commanded, instructed, lishmor me'od, to be diligent, to be extra careful with the mitzvot in more than one way. Kedoshim tiyu, the Torah makes a statement, be holy. Well, it doesn't tell us how to be holy. Well, you have to look at all the mitzvot before and after that statement, and you will realize by observing those mitzvot, which is maintaining a distance, including maintaining a distance from certain things that are inappropriate, yes, this way you will become holy. This is the meaning of holiness, is to stay away from certain things that the non-Jewish world doesn't really attribute too much importance to. They don't care. But we're, of course, meant to be a holy nation apart from these things. So the holiness, along with other instructions in the Torah, are meant for us to be extra careful that we do not make any mistake with the real serious offenses. So that's the meaning of lishmor me'od, to be very diligent, to be extra careful. Next pasuk. Verse 5. My wish is that my ways be directed to keep your statutes, your mitzvot, your commandments. It's my wish. That's very, very special. It's a very, very special thing that a person wishes for himself. He's not doing it because he's obligated, because it's incumbent upon him. It's his wish. But what is exactly his wish? Over here, look at the words, Yikonu derachai, that my ways be directed, almost like automatically. You know, like cars, sometimes you can put them, what is it called when they drive? Cruise control. Where it is able to drive at a certain speed, but that does not mean it will be going in the right direction. You still have to maintain the steering wheel. So here, we're talking about Yikono derachai, not just the cruise control, the momentum, but also the direction. We want to make sure that we're always headed in the right direction. Why say this? Why ask for this? Because of what we said earlier, there's a lot of things that will distract us and remove us, take away our time, our attention, and preoccupy us with other things. So my wish is that I should stay on the right path all the time, to be able to observe them so that nothing should interfere with that. What does this verse teach? That yes, it's important to pray for that. Not to assume, oh, God will take care of you, don't worry. No, you need to ask for this. By asking for this, it shows how much you care about it. If we don't ask for something, that means we don't care. Rabbi Elyahu is telling us, look, this is what I asked for, this was my wish, this is what should be your wish as well. Otherwise, there's all kinds of things that will take you away from that derech, from that path. Next, verse Vav 6. Az lo evosh be'abiti el kol mitzvotecha. Then I will not be ashamed when I behold all your commandments. When one learns Torah, does so regularly, observes the mitzvot, when he looks back to what the Torah says and instructs him, he will not be ashamed, because hopefully, yes, he's doing that. The Torah acts as a mirror. It will rebuke, it will remind those who actually open up the book. There's a lot of people that do not open up the book and don't read, or they're embarrassed to look at what it says because they're going against this. Imagine somebody dancing with the Torah on Simchat Torah, but he tramples on everything that is written inside. Does that make sense to you? Why are you so happy with this Torah? Why are you dancing with it? Are you proud of it? Doesn't appear to be. You don't care about what is written inside. That's hypocrisy. It's ignorance too. You know, they think perhaps it's fun to dance. Yeah, but it's a contradiction. He says, I won't be ashamed when I look at the words of the Torah, hopefully if I follow them. Next verse, Zayin 7. Odecha biyosher levav belomdim mishpetei tzidkecha. I will give thanks to you with uprightness of the heart. Yosher levav, uprightness of the heart, when I learn your righteous judgments. It's a great advantage of learning Torah is that at some point we will realize that even that which we perceive as being negative, bad, harmful, this is also for the good. I will realize, Mishpetei tzidkecha, In other words, that your righteous judgments, they're judgments, yeah, but they're righteous. How will I ever know that? Well, if one does not learn, he will never know. He will have complaints to God about the Holocaust. Just learn the Torah, you will see that the Torah predicts that there will be more than one Holocaust, God forbid. And you will be told why certain things happen. We will never know all the reasons for everything. It's not possible for the human being to know everything. But we will have some idea. So therefore, learn the Torah and you will thank Hashem, Odecha. You will give thanks with a practice of the heart. In other words, you will be calm and you will realize that everything is just. Next verse, 8, Chet. Et chukecha eshmor al ta'azveni ad meod. I will keep your statutes, the mitzvot. Do not utterly forsake me. So there's different ways of interpreting the words ad meod. Some say that the ad meod, very, very much, utterly, is going with chukecha eshmor. Very, very much, I will devote myself to observe your mitzvot. Al ta'azveni, therefore, then don't forsake me. This verse is also similar to the one that we said in Hay. It's more like a wish. Hashem, I would love to do things right, but al ta'azveni, in other words, don't let go of me, I need your help. Pray so that Hashem should help you. There are all kinds of situations where difficulties present themselves. It becomes difficult, it becomes a challenge for one to observe the mitzvot. And one example that I've spoken about before is about Shabbat. People that came over to this country, before Eisenhower, you didn't have a long weekend. You had to work on Shabbat. If you're Jewish, you had a problem. They fired you on Monday. They gave you a pink slip. You need Hashem's help. Hashem, I'd love to keep Shabbat, but look, I can't get any job. So those who prayed and those who resisted the pressure and tried very, very hard not to, eventually were able to succeed, to observe the Shabbat and to find themselves some source of income. Even to become a peddler and not depend on someone else's favors. So we need to pray for that. Don't take it as a sign, oh, I have no choice. Perhaps you should move to another location. You don't just give up the mitzvah. So the emphasis again, pray to Hashem that He should not forsake you. That you want to do the right thing. We need that. We need Hashem's help for that. All right, so we're done with the letter Aleph. Now let's go to the letter Bet. 8 verses with the letter Bet. Verse 9. How can a young man keep his way pure? Very, very significant question, especially nowadays. The youth, they don't have it easy now. A lot of temptations. And we want him to preserve his purity. So David HaMelech asks, how could we do it? How can a young man keep his way pure? It's not enough if the parents are pure. It helps, but it's not enough. We all have free will. We live within a society that has a very, very strong influence over the children, sometimes more than the parents, more than the school. What can he do? So that's the question that he raises over here. So this question is somewhat connected to what was said before. We spoke about the importance of observing the Torah mitzvot. So here he's saying, in order that he should be able to continue in the right path, it will be by observing your word. So in the same verse where he poses the question, he answers it. And this is related to what was said earlier. It's all about observance of the Torah mitzvot early on. So again, how can he achieve that? Maintain his purity throughout his life. Later on, Lishmor kidvarecha, by observing your word. Look at the Hebrew, and you will notice that he's using here the word orcho, his way, but we're more used to seeing the word derech being the way or the path. Why is there a need to change the word here? In other words, does it mean anything else? So, in Hebrew, Lashon HaKodesh, in the Holy Language, there are no synonyms. Every word is slightly different. There's a different nuance. It means something different. So the choice here reminds us of a way which is not necessarily straight path. Orcho means a path that twists, goes right, goes left. The youth, they change their mind a lot. They're not necessarily going to be the same a year from now. Teenagers. So they have an orach, they have a path or a way that changes, that is wavy. And that is why it's called orcho, during that time of his life. So how can we maintain him on the right path when he's moving around, switching directions? Just make sure that early on, Lishmor Kidvarecha, that he observed the mitzvot. So that is something that we're told by the rabbis, that the earlier you start training the child, the better. As Solomon says, hopefully Gam ki yaskin lo yasum mimenu, when he grows old, he will not let go of it. It will become second nature. It will become a habit. That's beautiful. Formation of good habits. It's easier if it's early on. Next, verse Yud 10. With all my heart I have sought you, looked for you, I guess. Derashticha. Al tashkeni mitzvotecha. Do not let me stray from you. Tashgeni is to stumble, make mistakes, which is pretty much the same, not to stray. Here, we're not talking about necessarily the youth, even adults. It could happen, we all make mistakes. Mistakes happen. Some of them we could have avoided. Some of them perhaps not. Only Hashem knows why we make mistakes. But here he says, B'choli biderashticha. With all my heart I have sought you. In other words, if one really seeks Hashem with all his heart, he doesn't want to make a mistake, and he prays to Hashem, as we said earlier, prayer, please help me avoid potential mistakes, then he might be protected, just because he prayed. Had he not prayed, perhaps they would have let him make a mistake. It's a very simple idea here, that there are certain areas in life that people, sometimes as a result of not knowing, not being knowledgeable about the halakha, will make a mistake, and that's completely their fault. Learn. The policeman will ask you, why did you do this? You know that it's wrong. And you will tell him, I didn't know it was wrong. What do you mean you don't know that it was wrong? You should have learned. We take exams. How to drive. It's important to know what to do, what not to do. It's dangerous. To drive is a very big responsibility. Life is a responsibility. But pray to Hashem that if you love Him so much, that you don't want anything to make you stray or move away from that path that the Torah wants us to be on for the rest of our life. Verse 11, Yud Aleph. B'libi tzafanti miratecha leman lo echtal lach. I have harbored your word in my heart. Tzafanti means to harbor or to preserve, that I might not sin against you. What would you guess? Why would he say I harbored or I kept it in my heart so I should not sin? Now, a lot of people just read, don't realize what they're saying. Without really studying the text, it's not possible to know, just from the translation itself. What is the chidush here? What is he adding? What's so different about it? That at this point he says, this is what I did, and this is important. Obviously, he's not just sharing with us what he did. It is obviously important to harbor in his heart. You remember the mitzvah of the king. The king of Israel has a mitzvah to have 2 Sifrei Torah written for him. One that he takes with him wherever he goes. One that he has in his palace. At all times he has to have it, to consult with, to be reminded of the mitzvah, to fear God. There's a lot of reason why the king of all people has to be more reminded than the average person. When we talk about harboring something in our heart, we're talking about memorizing something, preserving something. That takes repetition. So what did I do in order to harbor it, in order to preserve it? I repeated it. I reviewed it many, many times. Why is that significant? The simple reason is so that we not forget. That's the simple reason. From this we learn that halachot, for example, which are Jewish laws, it's important for us to memorize, to know them by heart. You don't always have a book. If you need to figure something out, well, you can always look for a book. Today, people just ask Mr. Google. And from Mr. Google, you won't get all the answers. You can't make sense from all the literature that's out there. What's the best answer for a particular situation? So, I made sure that it's in my heart, which means I memorized it. I reviewed it many, many times, so I don't forget it, so that I know what the halacha is. And in this way, so that I do not sin, not make a mistake, not realizing what I did, that it was wrong. Very important to review constantly halachot, the laws of the Torah. Next pasuk, Baruch atah Adonai lamedeni chukecha, verse 12. Blessed are you, Hashem, teach me your statutes. So that's very interesting that he begins here the pasuk, the verse, with blessed are you, Hashem. Here he's asking, making another request. For what? Hashem teach him. Why? Because we said before, there's all kinds of limitations that people have, all kinds of things that make it difficult for them. One of them could be that we don't fully understand everything that we're learning. So we need help with that too. And the reason he says Baruch atah Hashem, because that's the source of all the blessings, is from Hashem. The source of blessing, including the blessing of enlightening us. The rabbis, however, learn from this, that from here we see that when we learn Torah, read from the Torah, there are two blessings to be made. Before we begin and after we finish, right? That's what we do when we read from the Torah. How do we know that? Before, we know it from this verse, Lamdeni chukecha, teach me from your statutes. After the Torah, we learn it from Moshe Rabbeinu. After the Shirah of Hazinu, after he describes to us in Parashat Hazinu, the song, he mentions all that he mentions in that beautiful song in Shirat Hazinu. Right after that, we see the Zota Beracha. So after what he said in the Shirah, he begins with the blessing, the Zota Beracha. In other words, after communicating to us about the beauty and the importance of the Torah, he makes a beracha. So the rabbis say, you see from this verse, at least it's an insinuation that there is a need to make a blessing before you begin with the Torah and after you've completed learning the Torah, reading from the Torah. So that is in verse 12, the idea of asking Hashem that He help us understand the Torah, that He teach it to us, because sometimes there are situations where people on their own could not figure things out and they don't have a teacher. Then what? What are you going to do? We need Hashem's help for that too. This is besides the concepts in Judaism that are mystical in nature, concepts that are difficult to comprehend, even for great people. Lamdeni chukecha, teach me the deeper meaning of something that I may not know on my own, that perhaps the commentaries don't even explain. Ask Hashem for help in this area too. There have been many, many stories of great rabbis who prayed, who cried, until they figured something else, and it may have taken them several days until they were able to figure out the meaning of something. Not necessarily in the Torah, it could have been in the Gemara even. Prayer can be very, very helpful. Next verse 13. Earlier he said about harboring in the heart, and now he says that with my lips I have declared all the judgments of your mouth. Now he's declaring it, now he's talking about it, now he's speaking about it. So what's the significance of that? Well, you don't just want to learn quietly. You want to really remember it and retain the information. One way of retaining information, one way of memorizing it, preserving it, is saying it out loud. The Rabbi says if you don't learn by reading the words out loud, you will forget very quickly. So he says, I said it out loud. With my lips, I have declared all the judgments of your mouth. And it was what Hashem declared, what Hashem stated. Another idea behind this verse is that, what I think is that David HaMelech is telling us, not only did he learn, but he also taught. That's my own interpretation. I think that he's saying, I used my lips. How? Not just to read it out loud, which is important, but to teach it to others. Don't keep it to yourself. As the verse says in the Torah, Torah tzivarnu Moshe morasha kilat Yaakov. Hashem gave us the Torah through Moshe. It's an inheritance for all of Yaakov, for the entire nation of Israel. Which means what? If you have it and somebody doesn't have it, share it with them. They don't have a book, share with them the book. Today, everybody can get a book very easily. There were times where people did not have the means, or it wasn't printed. It wasn't around. So David HaMelech, of course, shared his knowledge with others. Next verse, 14. B'derech edvotecha sasti kal kol hon. I have rejoiced in the way of your testimonies as I would with all riches. Here he's telling us about his excitement. It wasn't boring. The mitzvot were very exciting. When I observed them, when I studied them, it was like hitting the lottery. It was a kal kol hon, better than being happy or excited about having all the riches. It's interesting that he mentioned riches here because that's what excites many, many people. He didn't care about it. He was the king. He could have had his hands on many riches. This is what he stresses. This was more important to me. This is what I take with me to the afterlife. All the riches I leave behind. What good is it? Money doesn't bring happiness. The Torah does, as I will explain soon. And that's what David HaMelech says. Take it from me, from my own experience. How this brought to him reassurance. How this stimulated him. Even during the times where he was in danger, during the times of trouble, it was the Torah, the Holy Torah, that gave him encouragement and strength to be able to persist. Otherwise, he would have given up too. Well, the odds were against him. Everybody was against him. So many people were against him. He really had a hard life. But he persevered because he had emunah, that emunah that we've been talking about so much. It was complete. He was not broken because of that. So, here is part of the secret. He looked at it as something more beautiful and more important than all the riches. You want to know how David HaMelech survived? This is how he treated the Torah. This is how he related to it. Verse Tetvav, 15. Befikudecha asicha v'abita orchotecha. I will speak of your precepts and gaze upon your ways. Abita, to gaze. Interesting, very interesting pasuk, this one. Befikudecha asicha v'abita orchotecha means, I will speak of your precepts. Well, he said that before already, to talk about them. The commentaries tell us here that sometimes David HaMelech did not know how to deal with a situation, how to react, how to judge perhaps. When I talked about Torah, when I learned it, I was able to see, abita, I was able to gaze at its ways. at the ways of Hashem. In other words, I was able, litol etza min Torah, they tell us. I was able to seek advice from the Torah. Imagine, we have sometimes a tradition that if you don't know what to do, you have doubt about doing something, you open up the Tehilim, you open up the Torah, and the pasuk, the first verse that comes up, may contain the answer to your question. If you have that merit, then you will see the answer right away, just by opening the pasuk, by opening the book. Rabbi Elyahu was saying that by learning Torah, I was able to figure things out. I didn't go to the library. I didn't consult with professionals, advisors. Just from learning, just from observing the mitzvot, I was able to gain so much. To gaze at your ways. To gaze at your ways also, of course, means that David HaMelech was able to understand what they expect of him. Hashem says, I'm compassionate. I expect of you to be like me, to conduct yourself according to my ways. So that is all in the Torah. So from learning the Torah, we're able to gaze and learn how to emulate Hashem's ways. Besides that, there's so much to learn from the Torah that one can actually become very knowledgeable in many areas. There were great rabbis who were very knowledgeable in all kinds of areas, even in the sciences, in every area, because of their knowledge of Torah. They asked once the Chazon Ish, how do you know surgery of the brain? He gave instructions for somebody. Tell the doctor when he performs the surgery to cut here and to cut there. Since when did you go learn surgery? He says everything is in the Torah, in the Gemara, in the Zohar. So if you learn all of that, you will gain tremendous insight in many areas of life. So that's what he says. I learned a lot from pikudecha, asicha, from talking, from learning about your statutes, that I'm able to gaze at your ways. Pasuk Tet Zayin 16. Bechukotecha ishta'asha lo eshkach devarecha. I will delight in your statutes, I will not forget your word. Ishta'asha is a very unique word. The best translation, I guess, is to delight, to be happy with, to occupy oneself with on a regular basis. Here, David HaMelech is telling us that it's important not to just learn Torah once a week, once in a while. I will delight. Delight meaning I will occupy myself with it as much as possible on a regular basis, so I should not forget. There's a mitzvah of kviat titim, of setting aside time for learning Torah, even if it's 15 minutes a day, a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the night, every day if possible, so that we do not forget. But it's not just not to forget, it's because it's the mitzvah to be connected to God, to serve God. Part of that service is not only prayer, but to learn the Torah. So he calls it ishta'asha. I will preoccupy and I will rejoice. I will delight in doing so, as though this is something that really brings me pleasure. You know, what this reminds me, since he uses the word ishta'asha, a lot of people, when they have free time, they play backgammon, or they go watch the news, or they do something else. That's something that they delight in. You have some free time, say Tehilim, learn more Torah, open up a good book, the life story of some great man, of a hero, whatever you prefer. Those things will inspire you, will stimulate you, not a game of backgammon. I'm not saying this, it's wrong to play some backgammon or chess. Occasionally that may be okay, a little bit entertaining, a little bit just for variety, for a change. It's been very stressful that day, maybe this will give you some pleasure and calm you down, but don't waste the time. David HaMelech says, I was very busy. I had a lot of responsibilities, and still I made shu bechukotecha, to spend a lot of time in your statutes, so that I should not forget my obligations, my real duties. All right, so we're now going to Gimel, the third letter, beginning with verse 17. Gemol al abdecha ehyeh v'shmirat devarecha. Deal kindly with your servant. He's talking about himself. Gemol. Gemol means to be kind with your servant. What is he asking for exactly? Not just kindness. Ehyeh v'shmirat devarecha, that I may live to keep your word. What we've been seeing so far is all kinds of situations that we may need Hashem's help in, to overcome all kinds of hurdles, so that we stay on the right path all the time, so that we don't forget the Torah. Here he's asking for another situation that can also interfere in our life. Health. Health matters. He says, I want to live. Look at the word here. So deal kindly with your servant. I want to live. I want to be healthy, so that I may live to keep your word. We should not know from that, but a lot of times because of health issues, people are limited. They may not be able to go to the synagogue. They may not be able to learn. They may need special eyeglasses to see. Without that, they cannot learn. So we take many things for granted. And the Rebbe says, no, we need to pray for this too. That Hashem should preserve our health. What for? So that you can go play golf? No, that's not the idea. V'shmirat devarecha. This is the ultimate goal. So I may keep your word. Pasuk Yudchet, Gal einav vabita niflaot b'toratecha. This is one of my favorite verses in Tehilim. I have several ones that I very much like. This is one of them. Yudchet, Gal einai, unveil my eyes. In other words, open them up, that I may behold the wonders from your Torah. David HaMelech wants to see wonders. What's wonders from the Torah? The deep secrets. There's an incredible Zohar that says that whoever thinks that the Torah is just a bunch of stories is very, very mistaken. He's a fool. He says like this, the Zohar says, in the same way that when an angel comes down into this world, in order for that angel to be in a physical world and to survive, it needs to put on a special garment in order that it can survive and interact with human beings. For whatever reason, Hashem sometimes sends angels. In order for them to actually be here in the physical world, they need to have a special garment. The Torah has stories, all kinds of things that we see that are the garment, because that which is beneath it, the spiritual, the secrets, the deeper meaning of everything, it's not possible for us to relate to very, very well. It's beyond our comprehension. It's not for the average person. There are various levels in the understanding of the Torah. So what we're seeing is on just the surface. That's not the essence of the Torah. It's just something to envelop it that we can relate to in this physical world with our physical bodies. So here David HaMelech says, I want to know a lot more. I want to go a little deeper. That's the simple meaning of these words. However, there's something else. David and Shlomo, by the way, asked Hashem for wisdom. They both wanted to understand the Torah as much as possible. The rabbis tell us, however, it's not just about the deeper secrets of the Torah. Hakol becheskat sumin, everyone is considered blind. Ad shivkach Hashem enehem, until God opens up their eyes. There's a lot of things that we think we see, but we're not seeing them very well. Because the rabbis explained there's something called an inner eye and an exterior eye. We can see things somewhat with our exterior eyes, but not necessarily with the inner eye, because there's a mechitza. There's a certain kind of partition that blocks our vision, our spiritual eyes from being able to see. So some people know certain things in all kinds of ways. They're divinely inspired and the like. Many of us are not privy to that. We don't have all that knowledge or that kind of vision. He prays for that too. There were people that, of course, merited to be prophets, to have Ruach HaKodesh, to be divinely inspired as a result of their deeds, as a result of their merits. David HaMelech asks for that. To understand the secrets and, of course, to know certain things, to see certain things that ordinarily we would not be able to see. So when he says, Gal einai, please, I realize it's like we're blind. We're not able to see everything there is. And by the way, the rabbis tell us it's a good thing we don't see everything, because there's a lot of demons and a lot of destructive angels that we could not physically survive if we were to see all of that. It would very, very much disturb us. Hashem does us a favor, and He doesn't let us see everything. Imagine all the microbes, if you actually were able to see them without a microscope. You saw them all over the place, all the bacteria. You wouldn't be able to take it. The rabbis also tell us that right before a person dies, within a few days, he will see his relatives that have passed away come to him. Unless he's in a coma or something, just about everyone sees either one person or more coming to accompany him to the afterlife. Now we don't see them, but right before the person leaves this world, he's given permission for those eyes to see. So we see that Hashem has to enable us to see it. Otherwise we don't see it. Next verse. Ger anochi ba'aretz al taster mimeni mitzvotecha. Verse 19. I am like a tourist, a sojourner on earth. Do not hide your commandments from me. This is easy. David HaMelech is reminding us life is short. I'm just traveling. I'm just moving from place to place like a traveler. I'm not going to spend so much time here, therefore. I need your help in enlightening me, in teaching me all that there is to learn, because I may not accomplish. Everyone has a mission. This could be a reincarnation for him, where he needs to learn certain things, do certain things, accomplish certain things, observe certain mitzvot that he did not in a previous life. Therefore, don't hide those commandments from me. What commandments? The ones that I have to do. I don't want to waste my time. There's only so much time. Help me accomplish in that short time what I need to accomplish. Verse 20. Garsa nafshi leta'aval mishpatecha bechol et. My soul, this is garsa, is like it's crushed with a longing for your judgments every moment. Well, this is a description of how he worked hard. He put in a lot of effort, which is important. Nobody says it will ever be easy. Garsa nafshi, in other words, I'm crushed in my longing. I tried hard. I wanted so much. Because he very much desires to observe the mitzvot. It's not because he feels it's an obligation, I have to do it. No, I very much tried very, very hard on my own. The rabbis, however, learned from this something very, very important. From the word garsa, which is a unique word, which in Aramaic means to read. The words of the rabbis are like this. Le'olam ligras inesh v'hadar lisber. One should always read the Gemara and not get into too much detail or too much in depth the first time around. The second time, third time around, he should get more into detail. Let him first accomplish. Let him ligris. Let him read through it. Even if he forgets. Even if he doesn't fully understand what he's learning. It's okay. Get started. People may be held back. Oh, I can't do it. Too difficult. No. Garsa. Ligris. Read through it. Do your best. And that's what David HaMelech says in other words. I very much tried hard. I crushed. My soul was crushed with a longing for your judgments every moment. In other words, I didn't sit idle and do nothing. I really tried hard. All right. Verse 21. Garat zedi marurim hashogim mitzvotecha. Here he talks about those, unfortunately, those individuals who want to mislead us by giving the wrong interpretations of the Torah. Different religions, perhaps. And he says like this. You have rebuked the accursed scoffers, those who stray from your commandments. Scoffers is not necessarily the best word here. I'm just using one translation. It's those who intentionally mislead, those who make fun of it, those who don't really believe in it, are zedim, wicked people. So he's asking for help with them too, that they should not in any way interfere and cool us off. They're shogim mitzvotecha. They are straying from the mitzvot. Don't let them convince others of the same. Gal me'alai cherpa vavuz kidotecha natzarti, that's number 22. Remove insult and contempt from me, for I have kept your testimonies. He doesn't want to be embarrassed. There are people that will make fun. There are people that will say that you're not doing the right thing. and perhaps plant doubts in your mind. He's asking for help with that too. Please remove that away from me. Remove those that insult and make fun, so that they should not be in the way of me observing your testimonies. Verse 23, sometimes princes, important people, sarim, would sit with him and would tell David, you're mismanaging the place, you're not taking care of, you're the king, you're learning Torah. You're going to the Daf Hayom, you're doing this. What about ruling, governing? So we're talking about sarim. So though princes sat and spoke against me, your servant speaks of your statutes. I still went and learned Torah. There were CEOs of companies who've asked the members at a meeting, ladies and gentlemen, please excuse me, I'm going to pray now mincha the next door. Yes, that can wait. I need to serve my God. That's what Rabbi Elyahu says too. But he's asking for help, that those things shouldn't bother him. In the last verse, 24, Gam edotecha sha'ashuai anshe atzati. Indeed, your testimonies are my delight, they are my counselors. He says, I prefer the company of the Torah, that the Torah should be with me. That's my sha'ashuai, your mitzvot. Then anshe atzati, they're my counselors. As we said before, he receives counsel from the Torah. He enjoys this much more. He derives more benefit from the Torah. He realizes this, and this is what he's telling us. You will derive so much benefit the more you spend time reading Torah. And that is what the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, the great commentary, Orach Chaim of the Torah. If people would only taste the Torah, they would be crazy about it. They would see how sweet and how beautiful it is. They wouldn't want to let go of it. And that's pretty much the idea here, how he finishes over here. I would rather spend more time with the Torah than with anything else. Amen.